Islam actuel.
Bismillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Thank you very much, Professor, for being here. Thank you very much, Professor, for being here with us today. We are very honored to have you for this presentation and for these several presentations in the months that are going to arrive, inshallah. Thank you very much. It's really an honor. We are very glad to have you here. We are actually recording the session so we can translate it in French afterwards, and we are going to make videos on the internet. And we are also going to write what you are saying in English and in French so we can publish it in French, inshallah.
Inshallah. Should we
Thank you very
start?
much. Bismillah.
A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala khatamil anbiya. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. I am extremely thankful to my younger brothers and sisters in France who arranged this interactive session. It's not going to be a boring lecture, but an interactive activity where I would expect participants to budge in and whenever they feel raise a question, disagree with me and help me in further extending the ideas. Inshallah, we will be having every month an interactive session, and hopefully, if Allah permits, we will have 16 discussions on 16 contemporary issues, which I believe are on the mind of many youth in the global context, not just confined to Paris or France, but the youth globally face those questions. So we'll begin with our first discussion, which is entitled Ethical Order in the East and the West. In order to keep my discussion focused and confined to topic, I have sent some slides. I'll appreciate if first slide is shared with the participants, and that talks about how modern thought in ethics and morality can be traced back to its roots in the Greco-Roman thought and tradition. Jazakallah khair. So in front of you is a slide that traces the origin of the term ethics and morality, and you will see that both have their Greek origin in ethikos and meaning custom or usage. Aristotle applied the term to include both idea of character or disposition and personality and inclination. Moralis was introduced by Roman philosopher Cicero, who regarded it as the Latin equivalent of ethics. So this very brief reference tells you that origin of both terms, ethics and morality, go back to Greek and Roman thought. Next slide, please. Well, when we look into history of ethics and morality, we find that philosophically it was considered that ethics consist of principles and concepts, while morals or morality refers to manners and ways of doing things, which means when something becomes habit, people do it continuously. That is what we call morality. But the basis of morality, foundation of morality, is on certain principles. And those principles or theory is what has been understood in the East and the West as ethics. I'm trying to define these terms, so later on we will be more conversant when we talk about the difference between the two. Next slide, please. Ethics is not confined to philosophical understanding, but ethics relates with every profession. Therefore, we find whether some very sophisticated professions like heart surgery, brain surgery, or something very simple like stitching a shoe. Very common. But everything that is done professionally has an ethics. If a surgeon uses the instruments of a shoemaker, he is not a surgeon. And if a shoemaker uses the instrument of someone who is a heart surgeon, then he is not doing his work professionally. Therefore, every profession, whether very intellectual or very material, has an ethics, and ethics has relevance with every aspect of human life. ethics should be understood in terms of our everyday behavior. Whatever we do, either we regard it as good or bad. When you have a guest, you offer a cup of coffee or you do nothing. When the guest is gone, you feel bad. Why didn't I offer coffee? Which means a very simple act has ethics as its foundation. So ethics deals essentially with what is good or bad in human behavior. Similarly, ethics has certain demands. For example, a dentist, when he is visited by a patient and he finds his patient has very bad teeth, he prescribes a treatment, but he is not authorized to talk about badness of his teeth in public. If he holds a press conference and says, Mr. X came to me and his teeth are very, very rotten because he eats too much ice cream or chocolate, it's unethical, because he is revealing something between him and the patient. Therefore, ethics is linked with every single action we do in society. Therefore, ethics is called a normative science that deals with norms and values. If norms and values are observed, we call that behavior ethical. If norms and values are not observed, we say it's unethical. The norm in medical ethics is to keep the information confined and not to expose the weakness of the patient, which we call confidentiality. Similarly, it's a matter of how sincerely you are dealing with a patient. All these aspects are called ethical. If I take a very high price of giving half an hour to my patient, and in half an hour I am not doing my job sincerely, just talking about world affairs, football and other areas, then I'm not honestly doing my job. That's why ethics is known as the science of norms and values. Next slide, please. We can go to slide number 6. I just mentioned about normative sciences that deal with what are the norms. For example, political science has some norms. When you are in parliament, in Congress, you talk a very sober, polite language. You don't shout, you don't accuse, but use a language which is politically acceptable. Therefore, political science has also some norms. It's a normative science. But there are other sciences which we call positive sciences. Positive sciences deal with empirical reality, whatever is the phenomena. Therefore, they describe, explain how things function, while normative science tells us how things should function, how they should behave. So there is a basic difference between normative sciences and positive sciences. A crude example can explain a ophthalmologist who deals with eyesight can only tell us how mechanism of eye works and how that can be improved. But if he talking about beautiful eyes or ugly eyes, that's not his area. That's normative. And similarly, if a person who is an expert of normative sciences starts quantifying those things, then he is going beyond his limits. Therefore, these two sciences exist side by side. Then next slide, please. Normative sciences, as I mentioned a while ago, they deal with whether something is good or bad. And therefore, when you talk about ethics, for example, or aesthetics or beauty, then someone who's dealing with beauty tells us what is the standard of beauty, what is the criteria of beauty, what makes something beautiful or ugly. And same applies to a philosopher or logician who tells us about a statement. Is this statement valid, logically meaningful, or absurd? So, normative sciences deal with principles, standards, measures, and benchmarks. Next slide, please. Ethics, therefore, deals with human behavior, tries to guide how human behavior should take place. In that sense, it is also called axiological, or that which provides us what are values to be observed and what kind of principles need to be fully confirmed when we are dealing in one area or other of life. Which means ethics and morality both are integral part of human behavior. They are not a separate domain, but every single thing we do, even when we sleep or we are awake, we are doing something ethical or unethical. When I sleep and sleep is a requirement for health, then I am doing something good. But if I sleep when I was supposed to work, then that sleep is not good. So anything we do is to be judged on certain principles. Till now I have been talking, but I hope whenever I talk, you are having some questions in your mind or some disagreements. So I don't mind if you raise those questions now, then we'll move to slide number 11 after that. Any questions that you have till now?
Okay, there is a question in the room.
Please.
Okay, so there is a question about the example of the ophthalmologist. You were saying that positive approach is to say that an eye is functioning like that, your eye is like this or like that, and a more normative approach would be this is a good eye, this is a bad eye. Our sister was asking that when an ophthalmologist is trying to cure your disease, let's say about your eye, isn't he already saying what should be a good eye for you? What is a good or bad eye for you, and what could you do to improve it? So there is already a little bit in the approach of describing your eye, a way of saying that it is good or it is bad. You know.
Jazakallah khair. When I use this example, what I meant was very simple. As an ophthalmologist, I examine eye of my patient, and if I find in the cornea there is some problem, and cornea needs to be removed, and when it is removed and replaced with a healthy cornea, the patient can see in a better way. That is a treatment which I am doing in order to make the eye as natural as it was. I am not making it more beautiful or ugly. The cornea developed a problem which I removed and replaced with a better cornea. Therefore, I only restored the natural state of eye. I did not add to it any beauty or ugliness. On the other hand, when a poet looks on the eyes of a young girl or a boy and says, these eyes are beautiful, these eyes are shiny, these eyes have depth, these eyes are giving a message of softness, then it is a matter of judgment. It's a matter of good or bad. So the difference between the two sciences is, those sciences which are positive, they give you what empirically exists, what experience tells me, what scientific data tells me. But they cannot tell me whether restoring the eye to its natural state is good or bad. Definitely, the patient will feel better when he can see clearly. But that was supposed to be his original state. He was observing very clearly till he developed a problem. I removed that problem. So I have not beautified, although he feels better. But that's not what I mean by the normative sciences, which make a judgment. They are judgmental, while the positive sciences are not judgmental. They state things as they are. Is the person raised question satisfied?
She is satisfied indeed. Thank you. There is another question in the room, if you may.
Please. Let's take that.
Okay. So Mohammed was asking a question linked to the question asked before. So he was citing two books. One from Gangilem, in English it would be The Normal and the Pathologic, I guess. And the other one is from a French philosopher called Michel Foucault. It's about the history of madness. And he was saying that these books show that even when you say or you act like you have a positive approach as a doctor, for example, in these approaches, you still have, let's say, hidden values or hidden norms to say this is a disease, this is someone that is mad, this is someone that is normal. So Mohammed was saying that in theory, what you are saying, Professor, is indeed, we can describe it as this, but in the reality, for concerning the doctor, for example, we can see that sometimes they can have, yes, those hidden values in a positive approach of the human body, for example.
Yeah, I think he is very much correct, because when we further proceed in our discussion, actually what we are talking right now is how far we can be objective or subjective. When we are objective, then we are just reflecting what we see. When we are subjective, what we are seeing also has our way of seeing it. And therefore, all those philosophers who look on human behavior, they develop two approaches. One is what you have mentioned, that even a person who claims to be detached and dealing with positive sciences still has certain values. I will extend that and say that even secularity has secular values. Although people think that only religions or philosophies provide values, no. I said from the beginning, whether a person is doing something very crude or very sophisticated, we relate it with his or her profession, and each profession has its ethics. Ethics and morality cannot be separated from anything. But here my purpose was, when we study ethics as a science, what do we mean by that? We mean by that, it belongs to that group of sciences which are called normative, not to group of sciences which are called applied or positive. Engineering, computing, mathematics relate with sciences which are positive, while political science, economics, art, architecture, they relate with sciences which are normative. So the title of discussion is how East and West look towards ethics. I'm not talking at all about Islamic ethics or Islamic values. I'm just trying to first prepare the ground to see what people understand by ethics and morality in the East and the West, not just West, but East and the West together. In that respect, there is a classification of sciences. In their classification, those who talk about ethics and morality say it belongs to normative sciences, while those sciences which are exact, they call them positive sciences. So next slide, please.
The number 11, you said?
No, let's go to 9. Next slide.
Okay.
Let me say a few words about that. Next slide. Yeah. Now, here you find a concept in ethics, and that is, what is the nature of ethics? Is it something binding? Is it a matter of choice? So when we take good or virtue as binding, an obligation, or as a duty, then all those philosophers who believe in that, they are called deontological. I'm trying to avoid philosophical terms in this discussion, but sometimes these terms will come and we have no choice but to use them. So when ethics is taken as an obligation, then it is called a deontological approach. And there are philosophers who are very well known for that approach, like Immanuel Kant. He believes in that kind of philosophy. Next slide, please. So the epistemological question, how the good and right are known, is answered by ethical naturalists who claim right can be known as natural objects are known and right can be empirically verified. There is a school of thought who think that just as positive scientists deal with what they observe, similarly we can observe ethical behavior, and as a natural urge to be ethical, we can deal with it in a natural background. It does not require thinking, value judgment, cognitive behavior, but good can be determined in a natural way without any kind of philosophy. So this is a school of thought which believes that ethics is no different than empirical behavior. There is other school of thought which believes that it's not just observation, but intuitively from inside ourselves we develop a feeling of what is good or bad. Therefore, it is not just a matter of naturally knowing something good, but every individual has in his or her heart or her person a feeling about what is good or bad, which again is very much near to the natural phenomena. All human beings have an intuitional capacity to decide what is right and wrong. These philosophers are known as ethical intuitionists. Next slide, please. Well, here you find reference to a few of Western philosophers, starting with Socrates, who viewed ethics as a discipline with inner principles, that from inside your heart or mind, people decide what is right and wrong. On the other hand, Plato considered that good is the eternal form to be realized in human life, which means that human life will be meaningful if good is realized, if the conduct and behavior of a person is categorized as good. While Aristotle understood that it is essentially a matter of happiness that makes human life good, and ethical behavior gives you happiness. When you act ethically, then you feel happiness from inside. You feel satisfied. You feel proud. You feel you've done your duty. So these philosophers come up with their own views, and there are a few more in the next slide. Then we find Saint Augustine, who is very much aligned with our earlier philosophers, and he thinks happiness is a universal principle which defines what is ethical. And Kant, as I mentioned earlier, deontologicus regards as ethics as a legal obligation. And Bentham and Mill, they consider whatever is agreed upon as good by a large number of people, which means whatever is having utility by a large number of people, if they agree on that, that becomes good. Next slide, please. Similarly, some other philosophers consider ethical system as a reflection of social conditions, that society determines what is good or bad, and that means ethics is relative to society. What is considered good in one society could be considered bad in the other society, and it is society which determines what is supposed to be good or bad. And then we find existentialists telling us that it's not a matter of society, it's a matter of individual. Whoever feels something is good or bad, that is for him or her good or bad. And you cannot say that you should agree with my good or my bad. So every individual has that right, as existentialists believe. And then we find John Ravel, who goes back to Kantian approach, and that is whatever is just or fair is to be called ethical good, irrespective of whether a group believes, whether one person believes or does not believe. Therefore, the good is what is supposed to be logically, scientifically, or rationally proven as good. These are just a few concepts about ethics that exist in our philosophical minds. Let's go to 16 slide, 16. Ethics being theoretical implies that knowledge of ethical principles is expected to help in good conduct, but not a condition for good conduct. Its study cannot necessarily make men and women pious and virtuous. For example, a good painter is one who can paint beautifully. A good man is not one who can, but who does act rightly. So the difference between two things is, when we take ethics as just principles, then these principles do not compel a person to act in that manner. On the other hand, when a person acts in a certain way, then we call that good conduct. So there is a difference between theoretical approach, which is ethical philosophy, and an applied approach, which is morality and human conduct. A person who may have memorized the whole Charter of United Nations can still use B-52 bombers to destroy a country, although he has memorized Charter of Humanity. Which means knowing theory or knowing principles does not imply a person becomes ethical. Ethicality and morality is something different than ethics as a science. Can we move to now slide number 18? Ethical judgments involve use of terms such as right, wrong, moral, immoral, ought to do, should do, duty, bad, good, and so on. But does goodness or righteousness depend upon their results or circumstances or a situation? Ethics as a normative science tries to resolve these and similar issues, which means that should we do something or not do, or we have done something or we have not done something. When we make a judgment about it, then it becomes an ethical issue. And these ethical issues emerge in every possible human behavior or activity. Whatever human beings do, it has to be either beneficial and good or bad and not beneficial. But who makes this judgment is the enterprise of ethics. Therefore, to know ethics and to determine what is ultimately considered good or bad is very important. Let's move to slide 21, please. Ethics is organically related with political, social, economic, cultural, educational, legal, and communicational domains. Legitimacy of acquisition and consolidation of power in politics and monopoly and control of resources in economics or a media war are essentially ethical issues, which means that the global capitalism is not an economic issue, but an ethical issue. It also means global media war, like Islamophobia, is not just a political matter of extremism, but it is essentially an ethical issue. And when we talk about the political power, that world should be divided in two domains, a domain of so-called capitalist world and the domain of so-called socialist world, then all this is essentially an ethical question. It is not a matter of just politics. So ethics is organically related with all these areas. We cannot separate it from any domain which may be of our interest. Next slide, please. There is a difference between desire and wish, and ethics resolves that issue. Desire and wish are terms used synonymously in psychology, but in ethics, the term wish refers to those desires that continue to be effective, while an intention or resolution is more than a wish. It leads to action or force of will or power to carry out an act. When I intend to kill a bird with my gun, or I wish to kill a bird, two different things. My wish does not kill the bird. But when I intend to kill a bird with an air gun, then it takes a shape. So ethics differentiates between a wish and an intention. All those acts which are based on intention are to be judged ethically as good or bad. When we talk about intention, then it also means we go through a process of either an immediate intention or remote intention. Immediate intention may be one, while remote may be different. For example, I'm walking on the bank of a river. Suddenly I find a person fallen who wants to survive and he's trying to come out and could not. I jump and save the person. Which means apparently my intention is to save this person's life. But actually what happened was, this person was a prisoner who ran from a prison, and I'm a prison superintendent. I see the person in the water, so I bring it out, so later on I can take him to law court and let him be hanged. That's my ultimate intention. Or immediate intention is just to save life. But to save life is also linked with my ultimate intention of seeing that he is also hanged. So even when we make an intention and look on it from ethical viewpoint, it's not a simple matter. Ethics or making judgment is a process which includes not one but many things. So if I want to summarize what I have said, ethics in the West or the East refers to certain principles and certain ways of doing things. Secondly, it also means certain ways of doing things and ways of thinking are right and certain are wrong. Thirdly, it also means that to decide whether whatever I am thinking in my mind or what you are thinking in your mind, is that correct or wrong, can be judged by several ways. It could be individual judgment, and I as an individual may decide this is right or wrong. It could be a collective judgment. People of a country may decide is it good or bad. It could be a selective judgment of a group of people, say for example, a group of lawyers or medical doctors or parliamentarians who are limited, and they decide what is good or bad. So deciding what is good or bad and doing good and bad all are subject to individual, social construct, what people think good or bad, or depending on what kind of benefit we draw from it for society or individual. This is briefly how ethics and morality in the West is understood. Now we have time for questions.
So I will translate the question from a sister, which is, you talked a lot about the West view, the West conception of ethics. What would be the vision of the East then? Is it really linked or is it kind of different?
Yeah, the title was both West and East. I do not find a remarkable difference. I find there is a overlapping of ideas in both East and West because we are living in a world of globalization, and during past 3 centuries, the impact of Western colonialism on Eastern part of the world has been tremendous. Whether you are living in Pakistan, Indonesia, Malaysia, Australia, or anywhere else in Southeast Asia, then because of colonial influence, concepts of ethics and morality have been changed. And therefore, when I talk about ethical system or ethical order in East or West, then I'm referring to what are the common features. Although I refer to only hand-picked Western philosophers, but these philosophies with different terms exist in the East, and the difference is of terminology, but not concepts. Concepts are nearly the same.
So the question from the sister was, could you go back on the explanation about differences between intention, desire, wish, and what ethics could say about it?
Yeah. Normally in the East or the West, if you look into law, you have law that relates with intention. An intention means when you intend to do something. You intend to kill a person, you intend to elect a person, you intend to meet a person. Intention means when you are creating means to fulfill intention. On the other hand, when we say, I wish the whole desert of Africa becomes of gold, then it is a very good wish. But I have not done anything to convert sand into gold. But when I say I want to democratize a country, then it means I am going to introduce a system of election, a system of parliament, a system of leadership, and so on and so forth. So intention is what is going to take place due to certain reasons, while wish can be anything. Now, a wish cannot be judged ethically, but intention can be judged ethically because it brings results. A wish does not bring results. It has an effect. The one who intended to kill J.F. Kennedy killed him. He did not kill by chance. It was by intention. So that act can be judged. But if some people in South Africa wish that American president may live 2000 years, but does that mean their wish can have any effect? It's a wish, but not more than that. So ethical judgments are not made on just wish, but ethical judgments are to be made on what one intends to do.
And we're going to take a question online. So I'm going to translate the question that has been written. Ethics in the East is not a concept that is used or told to explain, to justify a point of view. For example, in the West, regarding questions of homosexuality or death penalty, they can be called as unethical or ethical. We are going to use that term to say it is ethical or not. But for us, as Muslims, it's not the ethics that is used, but the divine prescriptions, the divine law. So can we say that ethics in the East is less important, is in the second plan, in second background, sorry, it's not as important as for the West?
Jazakallah khair. If you go back to my early comments, I mentioned that starting with the Greek origin of the term, ethics and morality are linked with custom, tradition, and way of doing things. In a society, when people keep doing a thing for a long period, that is considered as ethically good or bad. So, ethics and morality, both, whether in the East or the West, have one single root, and that root is society. If society agrees this is good, becomes good. If they say bad, it becomes bad. Now, I'm not talking at all in this first discussion about Islamic ethics and morality. My second discussion will make it more elaborate to you about what is the difference. When we say Islamic ethics and morality, then quite often not only Western Orientalists, but even Muslims who are born in a Muslim family, they confuse Islamic teachings with so-called Arabian custom and culture. Go to library and you will find many books that talk about Arab cuisine, Arab architecture, Arab empire, Arab navigation, and all that essentially deals with what Muslims have done. But the mind of the Western Orientalist or scholar cannot differentiate. And those who study those books from their undergraduate till PhD, they get used to all those terms and concepts. That's why I'm saying that not only the West, but many Muslims confuse origin of Islamic ethics and morality. They think these are Arab customs. Now, the way you are using a scarf or a loose dress, is that not considered Arabian abaya, Arabian scarf? And quite often, a girl who is born and raised in France, who drinks French water and breathes French air, but she wears a scarf, is mistaken for an Arab, a Jordanian, a Palestinian. All these terms are used when you visit a marketplace and go to a shopping mall. They assume you are Arab, which means the mindset of the West and the East is not different. Both go to origin of ethics and morality to certain social behavior. We will talk in detail about what is the origin of Islamic ethics later on, what it makes different later on. But right now my concern was, although you are living in the West, but you should know whether living in the West or East makes no difference. It's one and same concept of ethics and morality, as customary, as habitual, as continuous practice, which has been put in your mind from your childhood and was put in my mind from my childhood, although I was not living in Europe or America. But the same concept, same ideas have been put in the minds of people through past 200 years or plus of the colonial age, in which various languages, English language, French, Portuguese, Latin, all these Italian were used by the colonialists wherever they went. And in those languages, they studied literature, became professors by reading that. So our concept of what is meant by ethics and morality cannot be judged right now. What I'm doing right now is giving you a background of this term and trying to share with you that don't get confused. East is difference. No, there is no difference between East and West in basic understanding of ethics and morality.
I just had a question or maybe a remark, or I don't know. But
Please.
From what I understand from the definition of ethics that you're giving, it's rather subjective in its essence, because it depends on, it can be defined by individuals, by society, and when you look at the different types of definition, it all comes down to whatever a person is feeling or is deeming to be ethical or not. And we live in a world where so the West has basically defined ethics as something being subjective, yet they are quite totalitarian in the way that they apply their ethics on other people, saying and presenting what is ethical as an objective truth. And I think that's quite paradoxical, because they're saying it's subjective, but in the meantime, when someone else defines something that's ethical as something that differs from their vision of ethics, they're saying it's not ethical anymore. So is it objective or is it subjective? Like, it doesn't make sense basically when you look at it. So I wanted your opinion on that.
I'm glad that you raised this question, and it's very, very pertinent. You are correct. There is a paradox that exists, and that exists not only in the West but also in the East. The basis of paradox is that whenever ethics and morality is defined in terms of customs and traditions are bound to be finite and not absolute. Customs of Topeka tribe are particular to Topeka tribe, not relevant to a tribe in North America. Whatever is agreed as a social practice in Britain or in Germany may not be exactly in France, because it is local custom and tradition. I'm not aware of many Britishers who will make breakfast with French bread. Breakfast is something simple. But for a French, this long, crispy, hardcore bread is something that satisfies. For the Britisher, it's something unnecessary. He will take a toast, half toasted, and put some butter on it and eat it. That means so long ethics is based on local customs and traditions, we'll always face this paradox. Second, ethics is not only a matter of uniformity, but ethics with existentialists particularly becomes individual choice. Ethics as situational also becomes individual choice. A situation requires that I use an atomic device to kill 10 million people of a country. Killing people of a country or killing any human being is unethical, immoral, and against the law. But I go out and say, this is my country's interest. I preempt. If I don't kill them, they will attack me. This is what's the meaning of wish. Wish means you have something in your mind, but you cannot substantiate that. Now, ethical question will be, when killing of human being is unethical, immoral, illegal, how my nation's interest allows me to do it? This is the paradox. Now, these paradoxes exist, and these will continue to exist so long as ethics becomes subject to individual choice, national choice, regional choice, local choice. My purpose of today's discourse was not to cover comprehensively what is good or bad, but just how good or bad is perceived in the East and the West at individual level, at collective level, and what is its roots. Its roots are not in any divine origin. Its roots in both East and West are essentially in society, how a group of people at a particular time and space think about it. So, I fully agree with you that the present situation in which you are living and millions of your brothers and sisters are living in Southeast Asia, in Africa, elsewhere, they are the problem. The same problem of that paradox which they read in books about human rights. But what they see in society is total violation. Can black racist or white racist justify their racism on any ethical ground? Yet it exists, and they feel proud about it. So, whenever you will have a local group, a society deciding what is ethical, you are bound to face paradoxes.
Assalamu alaikum, Professor. Thank you to be with us today. I will send my question to Melissa and she will translate it.
Okay.
Okay, so the question from Shahinez is about the practical aspects of having an ethical attitude. If I am an architect, behavior.
Okay.
If I am an architect or if I have a precise job, what are the tools, what are the methodologies to define what is an ethical behavior as an architect or as a cooker or something else, or as a student, more precisely, a Muslim student? What can I do? What can I write? What can I find to define what is for me an ethical behavior, an ethical way of being a student? Where do I begin as a student in this situation?
Okay, very good question. You know, you have defined already that a Muslim student is studying architecture or studying how to fabricate a bridge or how to do dentistry or how to do any other profession. Then what should be the basis of deciding what is right and wrong and how to do it? Now, I said from the beginning that every discipline has its ethics. Medical ethics, engineering ethics, environmental ethics, legal ethics, literary ethics. You think of any area, and every area has defined certain norms and principles to be observed. Let's take an example. What should be the ethics of economics? Ethics of economics should be that when you are producing an industrial product, then you are concerned about making profit out of it. But while you are making profit out of it, are you putting your chemical waste in ocean or burying it in a place which pollutes nearby environment? Is this ethical or unethical? I'm not asking is it divinely ethical or humanly ethical, but as an economic adventure of a person who has established a factory and he has chemical waste, nuclear waste, what should the person do? So every discipline has an ethics. Nevertheless, this ethics is based on either observation of people in their discipline or in their society. If it is a matter of discipline, they think those industrialists who are following proper waste management, who are offering proper wages to their workers, who are using proper machine and proper raw material, they are progressing and becoming more rich as compared to others. So they will make a principle, a norm, that if you are doing these steps, you are observing ethics of business, otherwise not. But all that is based on empirical evidence or local customs and traditions. Therefore, many people may have many ways. But when you call yourself a Muslim student learning engineering, then you may learn mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, biomedical engineering, but in all those areas you shall have to think, whatever I am learning, when I become a biomedical engineer, what kind of work I should accept and what I should not accept. Suppose, as a biomedical engineer, you are employed by a hospital which uses your know-how and expertise for abortion. Now, if you believe that abortion is not ethically correct and you take that job, will that be an ethical decision? Definitely, as individual, you may judge it. But if you are judging it as a Muslim student or Muslim engineer or Muslim medical doctor, then you shall have to go back and find out what is divine guidance on that subject, and that need to be followed. Simple answer is, so long you are convinced that you are Muslim and proud of being Muslim, then whatever areas you select, you shall have to go back to Quran and Sunnah to find out, when I graduate or when I finish my education in this discipline, whatever I'm going to do, is that going to be beneficial for the servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or will it serve hukukul ibad? If it serves humanity, make people better, perfectly okay. But if it is going to harm them and I achieve that skill, then Islamically doing that will not be ethical. So in every discipline you have lots of opportunities. Islam does not stop you from entering in any area of expertise. But the question is, when you have learned all available literature and you have experimented all available areas of that discipline, ultimately, what do you want to achieve? If you want to achieve success in al-akhirah, then you have to make sure your professional skill is used for benefit and not harm for people. So you have to make ethical judgment based on your Islamic understanding, not just what can give you more money, what can make you more popular, what can give you glamour. All those standards are not based on Islamic principles given by the Quran and Sunnah. I hope I answered your question.
Jazakallahu khair, Professor. Barakallahu fiqh. We are very, very honored for this conference and this lecture. May Allah bless you, and we hope that
thank you very much. So you are saving the question for our next meeting, inshallah. Okay?
Yes. Yes.
We'll first take the question and then start the discussion when we meet next, inshallah.
Thank you very much.
And my best prayers to all of you. I am so glad to listen to these questions, and I want to have more questions. These were not enough. Okay?
You will have them,
So
inshallah.
if all of you can come with each one at least 2 questions, then it will be much better environment.
Okay, that will be our homework, inshallah. We write it. Thank you.
Inshallah. Jazakallah khair. May Allah bless you all.
Amin wa yak. Barakallahu fik.
Ma salama.
Juste un petit mot pour resituer l'intervention, parce qu'on a été un peu brut, on rentre dans le truc. L'intérêt de présenter les différentes théories morales occidentales, c'était pas par plaisir intellectuel, c'est que ça permet de voir aujourd'hui laquelle de ces options, lesquelles ont été choisies et mises en pratique. Et par exemple, il ne faut pas croire que c'est simplement les autres. Hein. Si on prend la question du hijab aujourd'hui, comment on défend le fait de le porter? On le défend avec un argument existentialiste, c'est-à-dire c'est un choix qui est vraiment moi. C'est vraiment moi qui l'ai décidé. C'est ça le principe d'authenticité, comme le principe de jugement. Et c'est comme ça aussi que dans beaucoup de circonstances, les musulmans, par exemple, moi qui m'intéresse pas mal, ça, quand on va choisir une femme ou un homme ou décider de divorcer, je veux pas de cette femme, même si elle est bien, etc. Pourquoi? Parce que c'est pas moi qui l'ai choisi, c'est Abdoul qui me l'a présenté. Et donc, comme c'est pas moi l'origine du truc, indépendamment du fait qu'elle est très bien, et ça se trouve, elle est super, et c'est parfait pour nous. Et en fait, le bug ici, c'est le principe, la source du jugement, de la décision, qui est l'authenticité, c'est-à-dire, j'ai le sentiment que ça vient de lui, donc c'est pas moi, donc non. Voilà. Mais ça peut être mes parents, ça peut être des amis, ça peut être à la mosquée, on va présenter, etc. Mais je refuse, indépendamment de la réalité objective de la personne, c'est plus par rapport à la réalité très subjective de l'authenticité, c'est-à-dire, est-ce que c'est vraiment moi qui ai pris la décision, qui ai choisi ou pas? Et ça, c'est un vrai glissement dans la façon de faire un jugement moral.
Merci de ta confiance. On reste en contact? Tu veux accéder à plus de ressources pertinentes et participer au projet? Rends-toi sur islamactuel.org et Facebook, Instagram, YouTube et les plateformes de podcast. Merci et à bientôt. Salam.